Hey guys, it's Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. So today we're building a base game family home, and this house has enough room for 2 adults and 2 children or teens. If you're interested, I did make a base game family to go with this house, and I'll put the link to both this house and the family that goes with it in the description box below if you want to download them from my gallery. But this is a pretty small house considering 4 Sims live here, and in terms of rooms, it really only has the essentials. So there's a kitchen with a breakfast or eating area, a family room that has a nook for the computer desk, a master bedroom, 1 kid's bedroom that the 2 kids living here have to share, and 1 bathroom. And the family that I made has a mom, a dad, and twin kids who are a boy and a girl, but the bedroom that they share doesn't look particularly girly or boyish, so you could definitely make the kids be any gender you want. The kids' bedroom to me just looks very cheerful, and it has a ton of colors and toys everywhere. But all in all, I'm very happy with how this house turned out. If you look on my gallery, you'll actually see that this is my second version of this house. And the first version I made was, I think, several months ago now, but I believe it was before I started this channel, and at the time I really liked it. But I was revisiting it the other day, and I really felt the need to renovate the interior because it was just really bare and there wasn't a ton of clutter. And the wallpaper and counters I chose just looked really sad. And I just felt that this house deserved more than what I originally gave it, so I completely redid the interior. Part of the reason the first version of this house looked not as good as I wanted it to be was because I made it as a 20k starter house. And if you've ever tried to build anything with a tight budget in The Sims 4, you know that plants and clutter and nice furniture are all really expensive. So I couldn't add a ton of them into this house. But it's been bothering me ever since I uploaded the house to my gallery because I just love the exterior of this house way too much to have the interior look as sad as it did. So I ditched the 20k starter idea and I just renovated and added as much clutter as I wanted. I kept the floor plan more or less the same with the exception of the bathroom. I'll probably talk more about that when we get there, and then the exterior of the house is pretty much still the same. And I also added a backyard behind the house, which it originally didn't have, but I think it looks a lot better now. One of the problems I had with the first version of this house was that it didn't have a lot of personality to it. I used mostly mission-style furniture because there's a ton of it in the base game, and all the wood swatches on those items go together really well since they're all part of the same style of furniture. But even though everything paired together really well, it still looked kind of boring to me, so I decided to mix things up. And I didn't really stick to a certain type of furniture when I was redoing the interior this time, but I think in the end it looks like a good blend of traditional and modern. The backyard that I'm working on has a couple of planters for gardening, and I put in a bunch of plants and gardening clutter that I think really makes the back of the house look happy and lively. There's also a woodworking table on the tiny back deck, and I put in an easel in the backyard to give the family living here some more hobbies and skills to work on. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, I wanted to mention that since this is base game only, I used James Turner's Disable Packs tool to turn off all my expansion, game, and stuff packs to make it a little bit easier for myself, and also to make sure that I wouldn't be tempted to use anything from a pack or accidentally do that. You could, of course, just filter everything by pack and select base game with the filter tool in build by mode, but if you use the eyedropper tool, that kind of gets rid of any filters that you've selected, and then you have to select it again. And I use the eyedropper tool a lot, so that would have gotten really annoying. But James Turner's Disable Packs is super useful for base game or limited pack builds. Highly recommend using it. The link to it is in the description box below if you want to check it out. It's not really a mod or any sort of custom content because you don't download it. It's just some coding that you copy paste into your game's advanced launch options before you start up your game. But it's super easy to use, very intuitive, and the link to that is down below. Right here I'm making a little garden using the big square planters as a base, and I tried to make this garden have a lot of variety in terms of different kinds of plants, and I think I used, I don't want to say all, but definitely most of the base game bushes and plants somewhere in this backyard, not including like the cactus or succulent plants, obviously, because they don't really fit in here. But I used so many leafy and flowery plants and bushes in this backyard, and I really like the way it looks. I used to hate landscaping and doing the exteriors of houses in general. I'm trying to get better at it and I'm trying to make things look more natural and realistic, but I'm really happy with how the backyard here turned out. It's definitely one of my favorite parts of this build. And then right here, I'm working on the corner of this backyard that's going to have the functional planters where your Sims can garden. As you can see, I sized down one of the big square planters and I also sized down some of the circular planters. I play tested everything to make sure they still work. Everything is accessible and the size down square planter does still work for gardening, but if you try to plant anything in the small circular planters, you'll get a message saying that your seed failed to germinate, so the small circular planters are just for decoration. They don't really work in gameplay. I kept them there anyways because I like the way it looks, but if it really bothers you, you can just size them back up to normal size and then they'll be functional again. And then this here is the last part of the backyard. I made a little covered seating area and I added the hanging vine-like plants from the debug menu on the sides of the overhead plant covering. And then there's also a grill beside it, so this would be a nice little place to have like a backyard party. Before we go inside the house, I also want to point out what I did with the columns. On the front and back porches, I used the square base game columns and added a debug item that I believe is called World Fence with Post or something like that to the base of the columns to add that stone detail to them. And then for the columns in the covered sitting area in the backyard, I made it look like it had vines growing on them by adding the unkempt shrubbery bush in the outdoor plants menu. And I really like the way both those columns looked. And then here we are finally on the interior of this house. I used the banana leaf wallpaper for the living room and hallway, which I really love. It's such an aesthetic wallpaper and I feel like it really makes the walls pop out. In the original version of this house, I had a grungy white wallpaper that looked a little bit depressing, and since it was a plain wallpaper, the walls looked really bare. Like I would have had to add a ton of wall decorations to make it look busier. But the thing I like about patterned wallpapers or bricks or stone wallpapers is that you don't have to add as many things to make them look busy or lived in, because the patterns kind of speak for themselves. And it makes taking screenshots so much easier because I think unless you're going for like a super modern vibe, plain walls usually don't look good in screenshots. And I obviously wasn't aiming for an ultra modern design in this house here. I went with a more traditional set of counters and cabinets for this kitchen. And I think the clutter that I picked out represents like a mix between country and suburban style decorations. The little pig chef guy behind the coffee machine is definitely more country. And it's so cute and homey. And then on the other side of the sink, I made a little plant corner. There's a couple of different plant corners in this house, but I think all the house plants go really well with the garden in the backyard. And like maybe one of the parents really enjoys gardening. I made the family that goes with this house actually before I started renovating this house. So neither of the parents has the gardening aspiration, but the dad does have the loves outdoors trait. So I'm thinking maybe he's the one who really likes gardening. There's also some details in this house that go with the painting hobby, and I made the mom have the best-selling author aspiration, but maybe since she's like the more artistic one, she can have the painting hobby and then the dad can be the gardener. Either way, I put in the painting rack that has all the canvas paintings on it in the master bedroom a little bit later in this video. So one of them likes painting and one of them likes gardening, but this is also a pretty kitchen, so maybe one of them also really enjoys cooking. They can both just have a bunch of different hobbies, I guess. But I chose the super high-end modern kitchen appliances to go with the more traditional counters. And then I also chose to put in that more modern looking dining table set with the glass dining table. And then on this bookshelf here, I added a bunch of the collectible frogs. I was thinking that they could just be like pet frogs though, maybe for the kids or even the dad since he has loves outdoors trait. The last detail I want to talk about in the kitchen is the short curtains that I put all along the tops of the kitchen walls. They're out of the frame right now, but I really wanted something that would make the room feel comfy and pulled together. And I think that those curtains worked really well for that. And then this here is the computer nook that's part of the living room. Since this house is so small, there's no study or work room, so as I was building and furnishing this house, I imagined that the parents would share this computer desk and the kids would do their homework either on their beds or the couch or like the dining table back in the kitchen. But I had so much fun cluttering up this desk. I feel like my go-to clutter method for lining like the backs of desks or shelves is using the vintage books item. I just love the way they look when they're lined up next to each other in different swatches. And then this corner here is where the TV is going to go in a second. I sized down one of the bigger tabletop TVs because the smallest boxy TV is just so tiny, and I feel like you would have to be an arm's length away from the screen to actually see anything on it. So I almost never use it in my builds unless I guess it's for like a single sim living in a tiny space, but it's so outdated and small and it feels wrong to put in a suburban family living space. But anyways, on the bottom shelf of that end table that the TV is resting on, I put some stacks of CDs to clutter it up. And then I also added a bunch of those mounted fish trophies to the TV corner. So I guess that can be another one of the dad's hobbies since he's an outdoor guy. The fish mounts above the TV are all some of the lower end fish that you can get from fishing. Like, one of them is the goldfish, which is kind of sad because I really only think of goldfish as pets, but I chose those smaller fish because I think they look cuter than the real bigger fish. Also, I absolutely love the couches that I use for the TV area. They're some of my favorite base game couches and I love the textures on them. I like how the bigger couch and the armchair are part of a set, but still have slightly different cushion patterns. But all the swatches on these couches are really beautiful. I went with the black and white swatch that has the darker wood color, but the more colorful swatches are also super pretty. And then this here is the bathroom in this house. In the first version of this house I made, I had the shower tub combo up against the right wall in this bathroom so that it took up that entire wall. And then I had the sink and toilet opposite of the shower on the left wall. But when I was taking screenshots, the entire bathroom just looked super empty. And there wasn't a good way for me to add clutter anywhere without it looking awkward. So I switched it up to this layout. Your Sims only need the one tile in front of the shower door that has the towel on it to use the shower, so I put the decorative laundry hamper on the other tile that's in front of the shower, and I use the same counters and cabinets from the kitchen for the sink area here in the bathroom. And then this room here is the master bedroom. I used the tall cabinets again to create a sort of built-in storage wall around the headboard of the bed, and I added a clutter shelf above the bed. To be honest, I was really just trying to hide the plants that were clipping through the wall from the garden because I didn't really want to delete those plants and they were up against the wall, so there wasn't really any way for me to keep them there and not have them clip through. So in the end, I just added some curtains beneath the shelf to make it look like this bed had a draped fabric headboard. And then I put in some decorative laundry at the foot of the bed. I feel like I always do that because growing up, my parents seemed to always have a clean basket of laundry at the foot of their bed. But this corner right here has the parents' own little TV shelf. I put in a TV a little bit later, but I sized down that plush ottoman to make it look like it's a comfortable little bench that you can sit on that also has storage underneath. I didn't play test that, but I'm pretty sure it's not functional. And then I used the vintage books item again to line the wall behind my makeshift bench, and I added yet another plant corner to this house. I think it looks adorable, and I also put in that trio of candles next to the plants. You'll see in the screenshots at the end of this video, but I turned off the light on those candles because I know it's not a thing in The Sims, but I feel like in real life having candles next to a bunch of plants is definitely a fire hazard. I know I'm overthinking that, but it made me really nervous to have a bunch of lit candles next to these plants, so I turned them off in live mode. By the way, I'm just curious to anyone watching this, do you guys say live mode or live mode? Because I've always said it as live mode with the long I in my head, but I looked it up the other day and the developers of The Sims 4 have confirmed that it's live mode with the short I, so I have to remember to try and say that. But I'm just curious as to how other people say it in their heads. Anyways, back to the video. This here is the last room in this house, and it's the kids' shared bedroom. The girl I made for this family has the active trait and aspiration, and then the boy has the knowledge trait and aspiration. I'm pretty sure it's not called that, but I can't remember what it's called. It's the one that has, I think, either the book or the magnifying glass icon. They're both children, not teens, but if you want to play as this family and have them age up, they can still live here because the beds will still work for teens or even adults, even though the decorations will definitely be a little bit on the childish side. The way I imagined it was that the girl with the active trait would have the bed that's next to the window. It has like the soccer poster and the messy clothes on the ground and a pile of sports stuff at the end of the bed. And the boy with the bookish trait would have the bed that has the books underneath it and the Henry Puffer poster next to it. One of the last things I did that you'll see in just a minute is I sized down a dining table and some of the colorful kids' chairs to make like a dining set for the dolls. And I put in some of the debug dolls next to the table to make it look like the kids were playing Tea Party with them. I think it looks super cute, and the sized down chairs don't block the way to the beds, so everything in this room is still functional, which is awesome. But we are coming up on the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this speed build today. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more of my speed builds, please consider subscribing to my channel for more videos every week. Thanks again for watching, and bye!